do the yeah, I'll say who you're coming. That, you know. Okay? Here we go then. Steve, we can take everyone down except me. Good morning, good evening, wherever you are, and welcome to the spin-off show. Those of you who saw Global Atheist News yesterday saw a report on the way religion has impacted humanity over the last 7 days. What we're doing now is giving our views on the news. I have some opinionated people here to help me do that. We have Captain Dread Pirate,
Ahoy.
Percy Duplessis, Guy Otten, Esther, the Afro-humanist, and Dr. Ty Wells. Welcome, guys.
Thanks for having us.
Happy to be here.
Thank you very much for coming. So we'll leap straight into the first item. This is about the Ukraine war. And you know that Patriarch Kirill, the head of the Russian Orthodox Church, has given his support to Putin in his ambitions to invade Ukraine. And this has happened to such an extent that Pope Francis has warned Patriarch Kirill not to become Putin's altar boy. But the interesting thing here is in the last week, the EU president that's Ms. von der Leyen, has told the European Parliament that Kirill is now on the EU sanctions list, along with all those Russian oligarchs who are deprived of the opportunity to travel or keep their yachts in the EU and all that nonsense, you know. So he is being blackballed, if you'll pardon that expression, along with all these other naughty boys. So what do you think of that?
Naughty boys.
Well, I mean, I heard this morning a suggestion that Fox News ought to be included on the sanctions list on the grounds that they facilitate a lot of Putin propaganda. I don't know. I don't watch Fox News.
I find all that rather troubling, just because it all of a sudden it's a slippery slope on free speech.
Yeah.
I don't know why you enlarged me and then I disappeared.
I mean, we did discuss this the other week, didn't we? When we regretted how religions tend to sort of follow the nationalist program and used to do that more in the past, and how recently in the West religions have been a bit more independent and have been sometimes critical of national war efforts, you know, and invasions.
Absolutely.
And it's a pity that Kirill has not felt able to be a bit more independent.
Yeah, I always think when something like this happens, what would Jesus do?
Well, I know what the flying spaghetti monster would do, and he's not very happy with all this. Pastafarians, I think, across the board are just are absolutely not in support of the war of any kind for anywhere.
I think disappearing for 2,000 years isn't much of a talent and a need right now, but yeah, it's fine.
Mm-hmm.
What I find ironic is that the Pope is willing to chastise one of his actually fellow brethren for agreeing with a leader who's perpetrating human rights abuses. While the Catholic Church doesn't have a blemished-free history itself in that regard. So I do find it quite ironic.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. What's the expression? First sort out your own
Yeah.
church.
Take the plank out of your own eye or something.
That's it.
That's it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thanks, Guy. Yeah.
And I
Well,
suppose not going to do much to heal the schism between the Eastern and the Western churches, because we have to remember that the Orthodox Church is actually that's a representative of the first great schism in Christianity, and they are actually still trying to heal it. So I suppose that comment's not going to do much to heal that little spat in the Christian family.
Yeah. And another point, too, is given the attitude that the Pope has had towards Canadian Indigenous peoples with respect to residential schools and the deaths of children, he's talking out of two sides of his mouth.
Yeah. Well, I'm sorry these news items keep rumbling along and coming back and hitting us again, but that's the nature of the beast, I'm afraid.
Mm-hmm.
And here's another one, because you may remember that there was an Islamic State group that 2017, was videoing executions in Syria. And these were actual beheadings. It was gruesome stuff. And a lot of the perpetrators were killed, but one of them is imprisoned in the US now. He's a survivor so far, but he appeared before the court and pleaded guilty to 8 criminal charges relating to abduction, torture, and beheading of IS hostages. And he's originally from London, but he was stripped of his British citizenship in 2018. His name is Alexander Cote, and he has been jailed for life. So your reaction to that, please.
Good.
Yeah, absolutely. And going back years ago, it was completely just outrageous what these people were doing, and to broadcast it and to claim that they're doing this in the name of God. And I'm pleased that it's fizzled out. I'm not sure if it's still going on, but I'm pleased that it's not something that we hear about. And if I'm not mistaken, was ISIS completely taken over, right? ISIS was completely defeated, was it?
Well, it's rumbling on in various remote parts of the world. In fact, in Afghanistan at the moment, a remnant of ISIS is actually having an argument with the Taliban. So we're going to talk about that later.
I mean, one of the things that I wanted to mention is that this guy was extradited by the Americans, and quite rightly so, but some of his victims were Brits, including one who lived quite near me, and he was an aid worker, and who was there, actually delivering aid to people, and he was captured and killed. I mean, the whole thing is, outrageous. And what I'd like to see is him being extradited to the UK now to face a further trial in respect of that.
Yes, indeed. Well, you'll be pleased to hear that the judge of the court that's just sentenced him to life, Judge Ellis, he described his actions as not outrageous, but that even better word, egregious, violent, and inhumane. And he ended up saying, because the guy, Cote, seems to have some remorse, apparently, and had offered to meet his victims' families. A bit late, but and the judge said, if there is an afterlife, maybe you can seek recompense there. Now, what's interesting about that is a US judge included the word if in the sentence about an afterlife.
Something that always strikes me when we talk about extremist religious groups, I have to think back to Sam Harris, and I would love to hear what the more moderate Islamic people would have to say about things like this type of extremist deeds, because as who is a non-believer, I I wondered to what extent one could argue that the more moderate versions of the faith, to what extent does that enable the breeding of extremist groups?
Yes.
Absolutely.
I have my opinion on that, but since this is my first
appearance,
yes,
yes.
I'll be a little bit more opinionated than
I mean, the reality is that more moderate or mainstream Muslims spend a lot of time promoting themselves as a religion of peace. The reality is that these extremist groups exist within what I call a hinterland of condonation, support, sympathy, and actually shared values. And there's a sort of spectrum or a sort of ripple effect, and they wouldn't be able to do what they do unless they had behind them people who pay money or protect them or give them information and encourage them, that kind of thing.
Yeah,
that's right. If they're silent moderates, they're effectively condoning the action of the fundamentalists and offering their bodies as numbers to be counted in the alleged support for Islam. But I want to mention, I just want to mention that there are some people who are unfortunate in that they're not even, let alone fundamentalists, they're not even moderate Muslims. They just unluckily happen to be born in a country where you get stamped with that label and it's put in your passport. These are effectively atheists who have been labelled Muslim, and I've got one of them's in my household. So poor guy, he had no choice.
I mean, we talk about religion of peace, and in some parts of the world, this religion of peace has apostasy laws. How can a religion, so-called religion of peace, have laws that that defends its deity? And unfortunately, there's a case right now in Nigeria. Someone has been sentenced to 24 years. Someone who had renounced Islam. He had renounced Islam, had nothing to do with Islam, but because he was resident in an Islamic part of Nigeria, they just, they in fact, they've gone as far as to say that he's lucky to have had the 24 years. That ideally he should have got the death sentence.
Yes.
And how is that a religion of peace?
Absolutely. Well, you're talking about Mubarak Bala, aren't you?
Yes, I am. Yes.
Who was the president of Nigerian Atheists, and that's his current fate. There's campaigns being raised to get him released, of course.
That looks so great. Hey, I want to throw out one random thing. This is sort of an indication that silent moderation, or being in the silent majority but quiet, is in no way beneficial to getting rid of these polarizing ideals that are like easily taken over. And it doesn't just go to Islam, it goes to racism, it goes to how we treat women in America or anywhere else in the world. It is a common aspect of human condition that crazy loud people get the attention, and people who disagree with them tend to be quiet and think that that's solving the problem when it's not. So if you are against this sort of radical nature, it is important that you make your voice known, that you make it heard, that you speak up, that you are actively anti-racist, anti-dogmatic, and pro-critical thinking, and make sure that it's okay that you foster a culture where that is acceptable, so other people feel like they can speak up too, because that's how we silence these, out of control personalities.
Absolutely. There's a great quote, isn't there? I'm not going to be able to remember it perfectly, but they came for the
it's Dietrich Bonhoeffer.
Yes, they came for the Jews, they came for the communists.
And I did nothing, and
I said nothing, and then
and when they came for me, there was no one left.
I wasn't a communist, so I said nothing. I wasn't a Jew, so I said nothing.
This is like four people doing a clown, a police officer, and a doctor walk into a bar joke at the same time. It's like, no, it was a plumber, a lawyer, and a mathematician. I thought it was a clown in there somewhere.
Well, the message is... The message is a bad... Sorry, I just want to say the message is it's a bad thing to be a member of the silent majority.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I'm sure I've heard someone a quote. Evil thrives when good people do nothing.
Correct. Yes.
Yeah.
Not only that,
Yeah.
but like your biggest power is giving it to someone else, right?
Yeah.
So keep that for
Yeah.
yourself. Speak up. Speak up. All right.
Yeah,
Thank you very
absolutely.
much.
Okay, next item. This is another ongoing. Oh, bye-bye, Ty. Thank you for being here briefly. Have a good evening. This is another ongoing dispute. This one's been going for 2,000 years.
Not
And-
another
and-
one.
Yeah. And this is a story about an Israeli security guard who was shot and killed in a terror attack near the entrance to the West Bank settlement of Ariel on Friday night. The security camera footage showed a blue Suzuki vehicle driving up to a guard post where a person in the passenger seat opened fire. Then the gunman and the driver both got out and continued to fire into the guard post before driving off. And one of the guards was dead at the scene. And there you go. The Hamas terror group praised the shooting, saying it was a heroic operation. There you go.
Can I come in here quickly?
Sure.
I'm watching a series on Curiosity Stream about. I'm trying to look it up now because the name of the presenter has just slipped my mind. But he was actually in the Iranian hostage crisis in the 1970s, 80s, there. And he's doing this documentary about Israel and the biblical origins of Israel. And
Yes.
the episode that I watched last night, and this makes this incident so much more sad and tragic. Genetic research has indicated that there's actually no difference between the ancient, well, Israelites that would today be regarded as Jews, and Palestinians. That they were originally descendant from what the Bible calls the Canaanites.
Yes.
It's one nation.
Right.
Yes. Yes, indeed.
And the ongoing conflict is there's no basis for it.
No.
And
Outside
and
of
it's so sad
ideological.
Yes.
Sorry?
Outside of an ideological difference.
Outside of an ideological,
Yeah.
based on the perception created by an ancient text.
Right.
That's the only reason. There is no other reason. It's this text that has come over thousands of years that has created political movements, ideas, and because religion requires that you don't change your mind.
Yes.
It's so hard to move on, and it's so hard to accept new knowledge. John knows that my hobby horse is critical thinking skills, and the greatest issue that religion causes in society is it prevents people from accepting the latest, the newest ideas.
Yes.
And it causes this block against science. I mean, how long did it take for Galileo's
Yeah.
ideas to be accepted by the Catholic Church? You know,
Exactly.
and if anybody says that religion doesn't cause harm, forget about the violence and the conflict. On every level, the inability or the prohibition, it's not an inability, it's religion has a prohibition against new ideas. That's
Yes.
why if you have a new idea, you are first labeled as a heretic, and then you go off and you start your own church.
Yes.
That's how it works.
Well, I love it
How
when
most of them work anyway.
This is the point you talk about the books that these religions have. In my opinion, I feel like these books are outdated. These books needs updating, and which they wouldn't get. Now, these religions, most of them believe in praying. Some will talk about predestination. God has predestined things. If God has predestined things, why do you pray? Why do you? Because praying is equivalent to asking for the things what have been predestined to be changed. You want them. If I mean, I've heard people pray for the rain to stop. The rain is falling, and they pray, "Oh God, please stop the rain." Right? Now, what my question is, why can't they pray to the God to have the books updated, to have the books fit for purpose? If your prayers can actually, if your prayers can change things, I think that you can start by asking for these books to be tweaked for the 21st. We're in the 21st century, aren't we?
Well,
Yeah,
well,
tweaked
that's
for this century, because as you know, I could go on and on about some of the
Yes.
things. For me, why a book will have the laws that guides slavery in it,
Yes.
laws that teaches the slave master how to treat his slave, but would not have details as to how the earth was formed.
Yes.
Things that we should really be,
Yeah.
be getting into. It just beggars belief.
Absolutely. Hey, God, we need a new edition. There's a Higgs boson and gravity waves.
there you go. It's one good thing about the Pastafarian religion, I have to say, is that the book is updated. It was, the gospel came down to us in 2005, and rather than 10 commandments about what you shouldn't do or what you cannot do, it's the 8 I'd rather you didn't, and I'd encourage you to check those out.
Yeah. Well, what I love is the way that now we can read the human genome. It's been discovered that even God's chosen people are up to 6% Neanderthal.
Yes.
Yeah. There you go. Okay. Thanks for all of that. Item number 4. Roe versus Wade is under threat. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Millions of women across the US could soon lose their legal right to abortion. This document has been leaked, and according to it, it's a first draft, but it was circulated around the Supreme Court on the 10th of February, and it appears to show that it was written by Justice Samuel Alito, and it appears to show that the court is likely to overturn the famous 1973 ruling for legalizing abortion. And even President Biden, who is of course a Catholic, says if the court does overturn Roe, it will fall on our nation's elected officials at all levels of government to protect a woman's right to choose.
Yep.
Now, I support him in his major statement, but what I don't support, he's trying to use it as a campaigning tool.
That's what politicians do.
He's saying,
Yeah. But doesn't
I
the
just
go
I just have to say that we have a Pastafarian, and I shall not comment on this topic, because if I had to make a religion for myself, I'd be a Monty Pythonist, and therefore every sperm would have to be sacred. So
Every sperm is
we showed the life
sacred.
of Brian at the Northern Atheists last night, the other night. But no, look, isn't the point about this decision? Well, it's not a decision yet, but this likely to a decision is that it returns the decision about abortion laws to the states. So in that sense, Biden is right that the campaign now goes back to the states. Some states allow abortion, quite a few are going to restrict it or even try to abolish it altogether.
And it's like half of them,
So it's not as if
26.
the campaign is lost.
22 of them
Oh,
are likely
okay, I
to
thought it was
restrict
26.
Yes.
Or,
And
yeah, I guess there's only 50 or whatever.
The thing that the Margaret Atwood,
Yes.
the famous author who wrote The Handmaid's Tale, wrote a
Yes.
very interesting article which was in the Guardian this morning, in which she talked about the forcing of women to have children or have babies against their will as really an imposition of slavery on them.
Right.
Yes.
I thought that was a very interesting point that she made in that. I would recommend it. It's online. Margaret Atwood. Yeah, short article, very powerful.
Yes. I've forgotten that our northern branch, this is Atheist UK, Atheism UK, and Guy is one of the lead people in our northern branch and based around Manchester. I'd forgotten that you were going to screen Life with Brian this week.
Yes.
Did it go all right? Because
Yes, it went fine. It was very enjoyable. Yes, we were able to, enjoy it really.
were you able to project it or put it on a big
Yes,
screen?
we were able to project it. Yep.
Great.
And, incidentally, Manchester's not that far from Yorkshire, depending on which part of Yorkshire you're in. So, Tertia, maybe we can see you when you're up there.
Well, we fly to Manchester. We actually
All right.
in Manchester. Yeah. About the abortion issue, I find it not only in the sense of the Roe versus Wade and the whole thing in the United States. In South Africa, abortion is legal, but for religious reasons, people are still not very inclined to go for abortions. And in the town that I live, we have had in the past month 6 cases of babies being found in dustbins. Now I don't live in a big town. It's a smallish rural town. To have 6 babies found in drain pipes and dustbins is when there is free abortion at state clinics.
Yes.
The reason women don't make use of that service is because of shame.
Yes.
Because even though I have heard and read testimonies in the press of women asking for an abortion and then the nurse telling her that she's doing a sin. So what kind of willingness will you have to ask for an abortion? And imagine the terror of going through a birth all by yourself somewhere in the streets, and the trauma of that. What is worse,
Yes. Well, you're absolutely right. The problem here is not whether or not abortion should be legal, because if you make it illegal, all you do is increase the number of women who go to illegal abortion clinics and risk dying themselves. The problem here is religious shunning, shaming. That's what we want to get rid of. It's a cause for joy to give birth, not a cause for shame.
Yeah.
Yes, and what Martin
the thing is,
was that giving birth is a voluntary act of giving life. It's a positive thing. You can't force a woman who's unwilling to do that without essentially making her a slave. And I think that's a really powerful point.
That's exactly it. Yeah.
I heard someone argue that babies automatically go to heaven, going by these some of these religions' doctrines. So, if babies go to heaven, shouldn't they be happy? Shouldn't they, shouldn't that be something they rejoice over? But that's not my argument. That's just something I heard someone say. And the second thing is, yesterday I was reading a story by a lady who has been impacted by the Roe and Wade bill. She got pregnant, and one of the babies was growing in the fallopian tube. So that was causing a big problem. So she had three babies growing all well three, but she had conceived three babies.
Yes.
And so two were growing okay, and then one was growing in or out the fallopian tube.
Yes.
And it was at the risk of her life.
Yes.
And she said she had a choice to make. So either carry on and would have caused her death, or have an abortion. And she said the Roe and Wade bill kept her alive.
Yes,
So
yes, that's
if
right.
there was no, it's just.
Well, the pro-lifers misrepresent what's going on here, don't they?
They absolutely
think,
do, yeah.
They think that people who are pro-choice want to kill babies. That's not true.
And that atheists want to eat them.
It's the last resort. Nobody wants to go to an abortion. It's a measure of desperation.
What did Captain say?
Oh, I said, and that atheists want to eat them. Eat babies.
Well, I want to...
Maybe the Pastafarians can provide the pasta to go with them.
I want to talk a bit, because Esther, you mentioned that babies go to heaven. Well, the Roman Catholic Church has struggled with that contention, because in their religion, babies only go to heaven if they've been blessed. So if a baby dies before the priest gets to them, that poor baby doesn't go to heaven. And this provided a problem because, of course, the mothers were doubly distraught, because not only had they lost a baby, but they knew it was going to hell. So to accommodate that problem, some couple of hundred years ago, the Roman Catholics invented something called limbo, which is where the unbaptized babies allegedly went, and it wasn't as bad as hell.
They're just hanging there.
Yes, yes, that's right. But more recently, in fact, it was the last Pope, Benedict, before he became Pope, he repealed limbo. He said it was just a theological maneuver or something. Well, if you can exactly. Yes, indeed. So have we done this now? Shall I move on to the next item?
I think so.
Yeah, move on.
Yeah, okay then. Now, here's some good news. In Wales, which has its own Anglican church, it's obviously not called the Church of England, it's the Church of Wales.
It's church in Wales.
Yes, it is, that's right, the Church in Wales. It's part of the C of E, what do they call it, the wider convention.
Communion or community or something, is it?
Yes, something like that. Yes. But they've got a new archbishop, the Most Reverend Andrew John, who I think is gay, and he has said that same-sex weddings could be held in churches in Wales in 5 years' time, because the church should be inclusive and welcome people where they are, who they are. So this is enlightening, isn't it? What do you think of that?
Well,
first things first. First things first. I want to know if couples who are joined together, who identify as the LGBT in the church in Wales, are they supposed? Well, okay, no, sorry. I think if I remember correctly, it's the priests. If a priest is LGBT, they have to remain celibate, even though they're married. If I am not mistaken, is that still something that goes on?
I don't think it is, because in when was it? Last year, the church in Wales passed legislation meaning that couples could have their homosexual couples could have their civil partnership, because they got married in a court somewhere, blessed by the church. This isn't the same as getting married in the church, I know it sounds like a fine distinction to us, but they regard it as significant. But they already had moved to blessing, after the event, their marriages in a church. So I think they're okay with homosexual, non-celibate couples, but they haven't stepped to the brink of actually marrying them themselves yet.
You know,
I think Esther was referring to the clergy. I think there was a rule relating to clergy that you can be a gay priest, but as long as you're celibate.
yes, you can celibate here and celibate there.
Well,
yeah, I mean, it's all very weird.
Guy?
It's all very weird for us.
Ongoing, or is that still ongoing, Guy?
I think it is, but I don't really know, to be honest.
well, it would seem...
Tertia wanted some clarification. Tertia, you got lost there. What was it you wanted to clarify?
No, my question's been answered. I was just, I presumed as much, but I wanted to confirm that gay marriage was indeed legal from a secular, from governmental.
Yes. Gay marriage is legal in England, Scotland, and Wales.
Not in Ireland.
I think Northern Ireland is getting there. It's a bit more complicated, and in Southern Ireland it's legal as well.
Mm-hmm. So why would a gay couple, or any couple for that matter, want to get married in a church? I mean, can't you get married? There's so many beautiful places besides churches that you can get married in. Why?
Yeah.
And if it's a civil union in any case, I mean, surely I know that in South Africa, for example, the church thing is just sort of tradition. The real marriage, or the contractual relationship is it's a governmental one.
It's a legal one.
So
that's right.
Why is this even an issue?
Yeah.
I'm
in Canada. I'm a marriage commissioner, so I have an appointment for 10 years to through Vital Statistics to marry people in a secular union. So, of course, we don't discriminate on anyone's sexuality or gender identity, and it just boggles my mind, as Tertia points out, that why would anyone want to get married in a church when the faith prohibits marriage amongst same-sex couples? Why does the secular, why does secularism always lead the way in human rights?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, why can't we just figure this out?
Yeah, absolutely.
Can I just let you know some of the reasons why some people would choose to get married in church? For a lot of people, it is the family connections.
Yes.
My mother got married at that church, and so it's a family custom. For some people, it's the building. It's I just love the church. They want to have the photos, having the church. And some people, they want to have a priest join them together. There are lots of different things that make people want to. And here in the UK, it's not really about the beliefs. Because I was about to start training to become a priest in the Church of England. And you find that a lot of people who never attended church, but for weddings, they will come to church to ask for their weddings to be done. And when it comes to funerals, that's when you see most of these people. It's more like a culture thing to have your marriage in church, and to have the priest be at the to conduct the funeral, and also baptism when it comes to baptizing the babies, and so for some people it's just culture, it's just what we do, it's just the norm. Exactly. And lots of them don't believe, they don't necessarily believe.
Well, on that, I was just going to say on that, I've actually had experience that couples don't know that there's a secular option, and that there's an assumption, and that is a cultural one, that if you want to get married, you have to get married in a church. So it's not necessarily. I mean, you're right, and certainly you're right in some cases. But again, I think I know for sure, just based on my experience, that there are couples who just didn't know there was a secular option, and when I've been contacted as marriage commissioner, they in some cases assume that I'm sort of a non-denominational marriage commissioner, like a chaplain. But I point out to them, and I've had a case where someone said, "Well, we're not heavily religious, but we, have some of the vows that we want to include that refer to God and whatnot." And I say, "Well, I'm sorry, I can't help you there. You'll have to talk to a priest or a chaplain or whatever, because the service that we provide through Vital Statistics is purely secular. There is no reference to any divine being or any kind of religious notion whatsoever." So.
Yeah. I used to be a humanist celebrant doing marriages, funerals, etc. until relatively recently, and the reality is that humanists, who represent atheists as well, are building a new secular culture where we don't need religion. And it's interesting to see, religious churches and groups, in a sense, catching up with us, but they're way behind, because of their theology is holding them back, and we understand.
Yes, it is a tradition thing. I was raised in a non-religious circumstance. I had lots of uncles and aunties. None of us went to church except for a wedding, because it is that traditional thing. So I just wanted to finish on this item with an update on the situation here in the UK. Same-sex marriages are not currently allowed by the Church of England or the Church of Scotland. However, the Scottish Episcopal Church voted to allow gay couples to marry in their church in 2017, making it the first major Christian church in the UK to allow same-sex marriages. Basically, we're dragging them screaming into the 20th
Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah.
Yes. Okay, I don't know, we've lost our American, our one representative of southern Canada, as Swedish Steve calls it, but there is an item here which is American oriented, and it's about Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene, who is legendary or notorious, depending on your attitude, a Georgia Republican representative, who has spoken in an interview. She said the United States is so sinful, she doesn't understand why God hasn't destroyed us. And she suggested that Satan is controlling the Catholic Church.
The obvious answer is that perhaps God doesn't actually exist.
Surely not.
And what's even worse?
This idea is this idea that even the nicest of Christians, even the ones that you think will not hurt a fly, the beliefs that they hold can be quite problematic. There's some of them who are waiting for Jesus' return. I've heard Christians say things like, Jesus should hurry up and come back, because they're fed up. They're fed up with life, fed up with their circumstances, and they would say things like, can Jesus just come back already? And I think they don't understand the implications of saying that. Jesus is coming means the world is going to end. The world as you know it is going to end. And the chances of you being with your Jesus is quite slim, because the scripture says that narrow is the path that leads to heaven, and broad is the way that leads to destruction. So even the scripture says, the people who are going to be with Jesus in heaven is only a minute number, and the people who are going to be tortured and to burn in hell, they're going to be way more. So they don't understand the implications of the things that they say. And for me, even the nicest of the religious people, their beliefs can be very problematic when you get down to the bottom of it. Imagine, talking about destruction of the world. Do they hear themselves sometimes? I don't think they do.
Well, it's the same reason people buy lottery tickets. They think that in their own mind, it's their time, and regardless of the odds, if it's a 1 in 1 trillion to win $1 billion, the people buy tickets in droves, believing karma God has chosen them, or karma, they've built up the karmic bank account, or whatever. But another thing is that, really, like police officers are required to take a psychopathy test. That should be really something that politicians are required to take as well. Because, too often you hear of these people becoming politicians in order to use it as a platform to, promulgate their ridiculous ideas.
We mentioned no names here, didn't we?
Particularly craziness.
Yeah.
And I dislike the lottery ticket buyers, because they queue up in front of me. I want to collect my milk.
Yeah.
Pay at the cash
Or
desk.
pay your gas and get going.
They're taking hours to go through all these. Yeah, very annoying. But to finish off this item, Marjorie Taylor Greene, who is herself an evangelical Protestant, revealed this information, gave her opinions, in an interview with a right-wing, a far-right Roman Catholic church group called Church Militant. And they so liked what she said, they made a video which is called Marjorie for Pope.
But then she'd be Satan herself.
Right.
How is that?
Yeah.
I mean, doesn't she see the irony in that? Just,
She should go back to ironing.
yes. The whole concept of Satan, and Satan being in charge. I had the conversation on Friday where I said to somebody who mentioned Satan to me, and I said, but where does Satan come from? And no, God created him. So
Yes.
why can't God manage his own creation,
Yes.
So the internal inconsistency when you blame Satan for
Everything you don't like.
it just breaks my DNA. It breaks my DNA. I'm sorry.
My DNA is broken too.
Yeah.
Well, we've already overrun our scheduled time, but I just want to finish with the last item here, which you'll love, because it's another grand old party person, a Republican. And this is the candidate for the role of Californian Secretary of State. Her name is Rachel Ham. And she said that the reason she was running for office was because her son found Jesus in a closet in their home, and Jesus handed him a scroll telling her to declare her candidacy.
Look at Esther's face. Yeah, I watch everybody's faces, and I know that I'm quite an expressive person, so I have to check myself all the time so that I don't. But I was admiring Esther for being. I was thinking I must learn from Esther how to behave in this type of activity where you keep the straight face and you don't fidget and you sort of look serious. And then when you said he found Jesus in the closet, we're like,
Yeah. And you only have to keep a straight face if you're on the Tucker Carlson show.
I just want to say one word, pareidolia. If we can just teach people the term pareidolia.
Yep.
Yes.
Because there's actually a name for when you see things
You imagine you see things, yes.
Well, it's actually your brain finding patterns
Yes, yes.
in randomness, which is
That's
a
right.
good thing when you're living out in the savannah.
Yes.
And if we just teach people that our brains do that, and without believing that you're really seeing what you think you're seeing, you are experiencing something, you're seeing something, but it's just your brain filling in gaps because you're
Yeah.
programmed to see faces. You know.
Yes, that's right. So maybe when they look in their closet, maybe they shouldn't hang a shroud up in there.
Well, what I want to know is, if it's pareidolia, where'd the scroll come from?
Yes, yes, indeed. Oh, it's just too much craziness. Anyway, guys,
Yeah.
you have been truly wonderful. So I'd like to thank Tercia from South Africa, Guy from the UK, Dred from British Columbia, and Afro Esther, also from the UK, different part of the UK. Thank you very much for being on Global Atheist News Review. And I hope to see you again next week or at some other time in the future.
Bye.
We can catch.
Ramen.
Bye-bye.
Bye.